sure. Yep. Perfect. We are recording, which is what I like to see. And with the Cruz family joining us, so perfect. All right, everyone, welcome to our Fun Feats of Science class. We are recording today's session. Today we're going to be learning about the STEM winter ski challenge is what we're going to be doing. But in this session, we're going to be learning a little bit about motion, force, and a little bit about friction. On top of the scientific method, because we're going to be building something, which is really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. We're going to learn a little bit about those topics first. And then what we're going to do is we are going to build something. So we're going to go to my, actually I can pull this up so I can see you guys, which is great. So today we're Fun Feats of Science Winter Ski Challenge. And as I mentioned, these are the topics that we're going to be discussing today loosely. We're going to learn a lot about these things, but in a basic level, so you guys don't need to worry about all the nitty gritty of it. We're going to learn a little bit about motion, force, friction. You guys are going to be building something, so that's engineering. And we're going to talk about what's the scientific method if you've never heard of that before. Okay, so let's start out, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. What is motion? Does anyone want to tackle that? Does anyone think they know what is motion? And it doesn't need to be in a scientific term. We can talk about motion in our daily lives. Does anyone want to take a stab at what is motion? What they think motion is? Kayla.
The move, like when you have your arm, the movement of your arm, like that's what motion is.
Moving. Yeah, like motion is moving. Absolutely. That's definitely something. Is there anything else that we want to talk about when it comes to motion? Let me just see. I have to go up. Did Dom have one that he wanted to say? Okay. Let's give it another second as we wait to see if anybody else. Okay. Well, we'll move on and I'll tell you guys, you're right. Moving. But it's moving from one place to another. So the movement of an object over distance, and then it takes some time, right? When we get in our cars, it takes us a little bit of time to get from your house to the library, right? The time it takes from point A to point B, let's say your house to the library, will determine the speed of an object. And that's kind of important. We want to know if something's going fast or slow. And that's a way to determine it based on distance and the time it takes for an object to get from one place to another. So that's motion. So now, this one's a little bit tougher. We talked about motion, moving from one place to another. What is force? Does anyone think they know? When I say something like, the word force, what does that make you think of? And maybe you've never really heard this word before. It's in physics. So we talk about this a lot when we talk about physics, a type of science. But does anyone think they want to tackle maybe something that they've heard maybe that word used before? Does anyone know? Okay, Kayla and Dom.
It's like forcing somebody to do something.
When someone's forcing somebody to do something, and Amelia said it, makes them think of pushing. And you are 100% right. Not only pushing, but pulling. Pushing and pulling. Force is just a fancy way of saying that. And so we're just going to move on to, in order for something to move, it needs to be either pushed or pulled. Let's go back to that car analogy. What do we need to do in order to make the car go? Kayla.
We have to like turn on the engine.
We have to turn on the engine and make sure that it's not in park, and then we can drive. And the engine is creating something that allows for a push so that our wheels turn and we can go. I mean, that's really basic. There's so much going on in a car, but it's the basic idea of you need to push, or in some cases, pull something like a door. I'm going to pull a door closed or push a door open. And that's a force. So these things are acted on by a force that either pushes or pulls the object or something, a body of something. So that's what force is in its nutshell. Really small, like just basic explanation. So when we're building our skier later, we might need to give it a little push to go. What we might also need to rely on is a force called gravity, which is the gravitational force to the earth. So this pen that I have in my hands that you might be able to see, if I were to drop it and just let go, it's going to fall. And so having the gravitational force pushing us down is also something that could help something to go, like a ball dropping, or in the case of our little skier guy, we might need a slope so that it can go down a slope. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. So the last thing we're going to talk about, oh, Kayla, you have your hand raised.
I wanted to answer the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see it or thing. Well, maybe you're ready for the next one. And if so, I will keep an eye out. What is friction? I'm just keeping an eye on the tab. I can't see everybody all at once, so that's why I have to kind of go through. Kayla.
Friction is like something to help us move so we won't like slip when we walk.
Yes, you said a lot of good words. Smooth. You know, it helps us. Helps us not fall because something might be too smooth. You're 100% right. Is there anything else that anybody can think of when I say friction? See, what I think of is not in physics. I think of friction also has a term when these two people, they were arguing and then there was a lot of friction between them, which means that they were disagreeing and kind of butting heads a little bit. And so that actually helps us to kind of visualize what friction means in the scientific terms. And I just realized I made a typo, so I'm going to fix that. There we go. What is friction? Kayla, you said some really great things. We said smooth and it helps us not to fall, so that we're like, it's kind of almost like a stickiness. And Ziggy's joining us, so let me add him. So I always think of it as traction is another word. You might have, how many of you guys wear sneakers? Yeah. Some of your sneakers are like running sneakers, right? They've got like treads and they're kind of bumpy on the sole of the shoe. And some of your sneakers might be very, very smooth, especially if you've worn them a lot. And so the sole of your shoe is going to help you to get friction. So what is friction? It's when two surfaces slide against one another and they kind of stick together a little bit, just a little bit. So anytime two objects rub together, both of these are creating a slight friction, but it just depends on the object. Some surfaces, Kayla mentioned this, are smooth and create less friction. How many of you guys have gone ice skating? Maybe some of you guys have gone ice skating. If you were to walk on ice with your shoes, what could happen if you're not careful? How about Kayla?
You would fall.
Yes, your shoes, even though they might be a little bumpy and creating traction, are no match for that ice, and it's really smooth and there's less friction there. And you land on your bottom. You fell. Now, some surfaces are rough and create friction. Like if you were on rocky terrain or sand, that some of these things are going to be a little bit more, causing more friction. and that means that it's less smooth. You're more likely to kind of hold your ground, and things might not move as much. Okay, so when we're talking about these concepts today, it's because we're creating something that we're going to move. We're going to make move, whether we push it or if gravity lets it just kind of push itself. We're going to like explore these concepts. And we're going to explore these concepts using something called the scientific method. So in today's class, we're going to address the scientific method. In a moment, we're going to engineer a skier. We're going to make a little skier guy that's going to go down a slope. And how are we going to use that scientific method? Well, what are some things that we know about skiers? Have any of you guys ever seen somebody going skiing, or maybe a show about skiing, or even the Olympics? What do we know about skiers? Yeah. So Kayla and Dom, you guys are raising your hand. What do we know about skiers?
That they roll on ice.
Yeah, not just ice, it's snow. And they have those kind of like, they have boots that are in their skis, right? And the skis are really long and they'll go down. So we're using our observation skills from things that we've seen in the world to kind of develop our skier. When I say skier, you guys should probably know what that looks like, right? Yeah. And maybe we'll ask our questions. Well, what would happen if our skier had one big ski versus two skis? These are questions that I don't know. When we're building our skier, and I'll show you guys where I got this idea from, and it actually has 3 different ways you can do this. You can create a snowboarder, a skier, or somebody that's riding a sleigh. And all 3 of these options are something you guys can build today. We are going to create predictions. I think that if I make my skier or make my snowboarder this way, it's going to go faster or slower. We're going to test these out when we build things. One of the things that I asked you guys to provide is some sort of board. You could use like a cookie tray. I actually have just like in my office, just say, a lid that goes onto a big tote you can use. We're going to experiment with different surfaces potentially that are smooth or soft or rough. And we're going to base conclusions on that. So we're going to be doing the scientific method, and we'll review that in a little bit. Okay. So we are done with the learning portion, though we will come back to the scientific method. I wanted to show you guys really quickly. This is the skiing challenge. These are some of the things that you'll need and some of the things that are going to be in your bag. The difference is you guys won't have rubber bands. Instead, you have pipe cleaners. You will need to provide your own tape. I think you have aluminum foil, and then obviously the craft sticks. And then basically you can actually see this little video. We're going to make our skier go down a slope, just like a skier would. But these are some of the ways that they made them. There was a sleigh right here on the right-hand side, little skier. You could do one ski, and that's a snowboarder. So there's lots of options. So I'm going to stop sharing. And now we're going to start getting our stuff together. So I'm going to swap cameras so that way you guys can see all the things that are in our kit. So at this time, get out your kits. What you will also need is tape. If you have scissors, that might be helpful too, just to cut the tape, but you should be able to rip them. And like I said, a board. You can use like a cookie sheet, a baking sheet, something that you can slope. And so like I wrote on here, maybe a pile of books that you can create a slope on. And I'm going to show you what a slope looks like, so that way you have this. Okay, so let's switch cameras. Perfect. So here is all of our stuff. So at this time, you could open up your kit at this point and open everything up and take out the content. We've got our foil here, and I'm going to pull it down so we can see. Perfect. There we go. We've got some craft sticks. All right, and we have 2. you can put those two together to create like that sleigh, or you can have two apart, or you can just use one. It's really up to you what you want to do. And then we have our foil and our pipe cleaners. The first step is to build a snowboarder or a skier or a sleigher. So we need somebody to ride this. Okay, and that's where the tape is going to come into play. Okay. And so we have our foil here, as well as our pipe cleaners. So does anyone think they know how they're going to build their little skier or their little snowboarder? Does anybody have any ideas on how they're going to build that? You can unmute and tell us at any point. Yeah, Kayla and Dom.
You can maybe take a toy doll and just like wrap it around and then take it out.
You could try it with a toy doll. Absolutely. You can tape the legs onto these. That's something you could do if you had an action figure. You could just do it that way. But with the things that we have here, we're going to build one. So what are some things that we might want to build? Well, maybe I'm thinking maybe I'll cut this in half. And at any point, if you want to supplement with any materials of your own at home, you certainly could. So I'm going to build, I have to build his legs first. So I'm going to, so maybe I'll take this and I'll make little legs. Ooh, maybe that's too small. And maybe I need, oh no, that's not that bad. I'm going to build it like that. And now we need to tape it because we need him to stay. And then we're going to need a body, right? So maybe we'll build a body. Or maybe I can use my pipe cleaners for that. It's really up to you with what you want to use. And maybe I'll put this way. So this is like up to you. You guys can create your very own, little skier. Oh, that's looking pretty good. He's going to have really big skis. I wonder what that's going to do to when he's, flying down that slope we're going to create. But I don't know. I don't know what that's going to do. So we're going to find out together. So this is kind of looking like a skier, but he's going to need maybe arms. You could theoretically do this whole thing with just this and the two sticks. You could. I provided a few extra materials, and then obviously the tape. Or maybe I'll have him have bigger legs, because I just did it this way instead, and I like that. So now we're building. So that's the next step, is to build, and then you can tape them down if you'd like. I've got two types of tape here. I've got masking tape and I've got duct tape, but you might have like Scotch tape, like just regular tape, and that's okay too. Whatever tape you have is going to work. So I'm just taking my tape. I just created a little bit, and then, maybe I'll make a snowboarder. But you know what? I'm worried if I make a snowboarder, I'm going to think through this, that he might fall, because that requires a lot of balance. And our guy is not going to be able to balance on his own. So I think I'm going to try making just a skier to kind of do this. There we go. All right, and then we'll have that kind of go around. All right, so we have our skier. Okay, and now I just need to tape the other side. And feel free to unmute at any time and maybe walk through any questions you might have as you're building this. Because maybe there's something that comes up that you didn't think of, or something that I didn't think of that could be helpful. When you're building this, there's a lot of different ways to do it. So there's no wrong answer. And that's what's really cool. And I don't want anything sticky on the bottom. So that's why I'm doing that. Okay. And you want to make sure that it can move a little bit, and it looks like he can. And you know what? I'm going to start using this, but I feel like he's too long. So maybe I'll use this to create a little bit of structure. So that way he's got better legs, like that. Okay, well, I like that. Maybe I'll do it to the other side and give him, Oh, like that. Because you know what? Skiers need a lot of like protective gear. And so maybe this is his protective gear. I don't know. I like it though. But it's making him a little bit more solid. And I kind of like that. Gives him a little bit more of a body like that. Maybe I'll put some tape there. Now I'm just making it up as I go, but maybe you guys have a better idea that will work better for you. Okay, so there's my skier so far, but I mean, he doesn't really have an arms or a head, so we're gonna have to maybe build a head for him. And some arms. He's gonna need some arms, for sure. Okay, so I'm building some arms for him. There we go. How am I gonna get this on there? I could tape it. That's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll tape it. How are you guys all doing? Good? Oh, awesome. I can't wait to see these. I'm so excited to see what you guys come up with. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna put some tape on there. Kind of get him to stay still. He's got his little things there. Sorry, I'm just moving the tape around on the bottom here because I don't want it to stick. Otherwise, he's not going to be able to move when he's there. So there we go. Awesome. It's got some stability because of the pipe cleaner that I used. And then maybe I just need a head. And I can just crumple up one of these and give him a nice little head that I could tape on there as well. This is what my guy looks like. He's got really, really wide arms. Maybe he's really muscular. I'm so interested to see what kind of tinfoil creature or person you created when you made this. All right. I'm giving him maybe a poncho. Kind of like that idea. Now, by adding the tape that I'm adding, you know, this duct tape is pretty thick. And in my case, you know, I don't know what that's going to do to the speed of my skier. It could help him go fast, maybe because there's more weight. But it also might make him go slower, or maybe he's going to need more of a push. So we don't know how he's going to go down that slope when we are ready for that next step. But it's going to be interesting to find out. We're going to find out together. There we go. So I got his head there. It looks like he has a crown, and I kind of like that. Oh, there we go. And maybe I have a little bit of extra tape, so maybe I'll give him like some snow pants. There we go. Maybe I need to give him some more snow pants, you know, throw some more tape on it. And let me know when you're done with your skier. So that way we can move on together. Some of you it might be that you're moving on already. So that's my little skier. I want to make sure he moves. So I might give him a little push to create some motion. There we go. And he's not sticking too much. So I'm thinking that's pretty good. As you can see, I didn't end up using this other pipe cleaner. You know, I might have chosen to do this differently if I had more like foil or things like that. But using what I had on hand, I used that, and that was pretty good. Does anybody have any questions before we move on? Or does anybody want to pause right now because they're still working? Don't want to go too fast for you guys. This is awesome. Seeing so many of you guys are doing such a good job. Lovely. So what I'm going to do next, also, I did forget to mention this, but it's something to note. Anytime that we have one of these classes, the paper can also be used. I forgot and I didn't end up using it. But if you ended up being clever enough to use the paper that the kit came in, that is totally 100% acceptable. We love to see that. Okay, so I'm going to put my tape aside as we get ready for the next portion. And if you have a leftover pipe cleaners or anything like that, feel free to hold on to it. You could always try making another skier again with different things. Maybe instead of popsicle sticks for the legs, maybe use cardboard or maybe sticks that you find outside. You could totally try it that way too and see what would work. Next thing we're going to do once we have our skier. Yay, we have our skier. He's here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to build a ramp. And I mentioned that I had a giant plastic board. I also have a cardboard piece as well. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm doing. Over here, I have a bin that I'm just going to use to create my slope. Now, I'm going to back this up so you guys can see. Here's my skier for scale. And I'm going to, maybe I'll try it on this side first. There we go. So let me show you guys what this looks like. All right, so I created a slope. And I see the Cruz family has a really great slope they have going on. That's awesome. So this slope that you're seeing here, it has a high point, and then all the way down here is low. I'll show you guys. See, it goes to this counter. So it's higher to lower. Depending on where that slope ends will define how steep a hill this is, basically. So let me see if I can push it all the way back. I'm trying to get the best view for you guys. There's our slope. Now you can see it. That looks pretty good. There we go. We're doing the best we can with the technology that we have. So this is our slope. We have the high point and it goes down to this low point. And you can build your slope however you want. Maybe you want it steep like mine. If you don't have something as high on the top, it's gonna be not as steep. Try it steep first because that'll be way more fun to try. And you'll take your skier and you'll lay him on the top. What do you think is gonna happen when you let go? Is the question. What do you guys think is gonna happen when I let go? Anyone think they know? Kayla.
It may like just go down like this, like it's not.
Yeah. In this case, I'm not giving him a push or a pull. We're letting gravity do that. So there's still a force acting on our skier, which is gravity, but I'm not going to be actively pushing him. You might need to if your slope is pretty, like, not as steep as mine. So let's see what happens. Whoa, he went pretty fast too. So let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, whoop. And there's a little lip at the bottom, so he's getting caught there. Now, if I decided that maybe I wanted to put some tape there to see if that would help, perhaps it would. Maybe I'll do that to see if, you know, he won't get caught on the tape and he'll keep going. I'm curious to see if that will do anything. So now what we're doing is we're doing the experimenting phase. We observed our surroundings, what a skier looked like. We built one. And then we asked some questions like, like I was asking questions the whole time. I was like, well, maybe he needs more structure. I wonder how that's going to work. If I had more weight, what would happen? These are all good questions. Maybe if he had more weight, maybe he'd go faster, but maybe he would go slower. I don't know. I am asking a question right here. What if I put tape at the bottom here to kind of help that lift? Maybe, you know, he won't get stuck. So let's find out. 3, 2, 1. So he did get stuck still, but he got stuck right here. So maybe I'll add another bit of tape and maybe some more and just keep building it up so that way he doesn't get caught. Let's see if maybe that'll help. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Nah, he keeps getting stuck. I don't know what would be the best way. Maybe I'll take that away. Maybe I'll just create a little, oh, maybe a little ramp like that. See, now it's gonna go like this. Let's see if that'll do anything. I wonder what that'll do. I'm curious. I think he might still get stuck. That's my prediction. Oh, I'm making a hypothesis. I think he's still gonna get stuck and fall, but I don't know. So let's see. This time he didn't keep going, he stopped. That's new. That didn't happen before. So that was something that I didn't know was gonna happen. So this is ways that you guys can explore that scientific method that we talked about, on top of the fact that we're just talking about force and motion and friction. Another question that's part of the scientific method is, what if this was rougher? And I actually have a different kind of surface that is more cardboard. It's rougher though. This is pretty smooth. This is pretty rough. So let's swap them out. Maybe let's try it again. He actually started rocking a bit, which is kind of cool. So it wasn't as quick, wasn't as fast. And he's also going sideways, which is new. Does anybody else notice anything about their slope at their house? How their skier is going? Kayla and Dom, do you guys want to share?
It was that the thing that our pan that we were using was much smoother, so it went really fast.
Yeah, so it's creating less friction, like we talked about, because it's smoother. It's like ice. How smooth it is. I see you have a baking dish, which is pretty smooth. So your skier might be going really fast, whereas mine, as we saw, yeah, he's still going fast, but this is a little bit rougher, so he's not going nearly as fast as before. That's a great prediction. That was a great observation and something that you noticed. It's also a great conclusion because we already did a lot of the exercises and now you're kind of basing it on what you saw. So that's awesome. Well done, Kayla.
Our skis were going very fast.
Oh, yours is going really fast? Amelia, can you show me? I want to see it.
Yeah, but then when we waxed the bottom of it, it went a bit.
I love it. Oh, wow. That's awesome. And now, Amelia, did you say that you waxed the board?
Yes. We waxed the bottom of our skis.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And what happened when you did that?
It went a bit faster.
And that's what real skiers do. I don't know if you knew that, but that's like what they'll actually do is put wax. I know on surfboards they do it. That's to create some more friction or less friction depending on what they need. That's so cool. That was a great idea, Amelia. Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else want to share what they saw when they did theirs?
Oh, we need some more tape.
Oh, good job, Alyssa and Emily. That's looking fantastic. I see what you guys are doing there. Oh, I'm curious about something else. Hold on, guys. I think I have something really cool to show you. It's not gonna be great for the video, but so right here, I just realized, oh, so Kayla, your board is a little bumpy. What happened when it was a little bumpy?
Yeah.
See, Kayla says it went kind of slow. So that's what's gonna happen if it's something's bumpier or not as smooth. It's gonna be slower, right? It's creating that friction, which is creating that kind of that stickiness, and it's keeping things from being fast. So that's what I wanted to experiment with this. This is felt. That's all this is. Felt is kind of smooth and cushiony. Maybe you guys have like things made out of felt at your house. And I'm curious if I put the felt over this board here. First off, let's do a prediction. What do you think is going to happen with our felt, with our skier? Do you think he's going to go faster or slower? How about Kayla and Dom?
It would probably fall off and it would go slower.
You think it's going to go slower? It's going to create more friction. That is a great prediction. I happen to think that you might be right. I think that that's very likely that he's going to go slower. So let's find out. Did he even go? No, he didn't even go. I didn't expect that. I honestly didn't. I thought he'd go a little bit and then stop right here. So he's going to need a little bit more force, a push or a pull. Gravity is not enough. Whereas before it was, we just dropped him and he was fine. So I wonder if no. He's really sticking. I have to actually really tug on him to get him to go. He's creating friction. And you remember how I had all this tape there and I was a little worried? Well, that's actually probably contributing to the friction on this sticking. And so because of that, he's just going to stick right along with it. And he's not going to move. So friction, if you have a lot of friction, it's going to help things to stay in a certain spot. And you're going to need more force, more of a push to get something to move. So he's really sticking. That's not going to move. So that was a really cool experiment that we tried and a prediction that we also tried. Does anybody else want to share anything that they're seeing at their house? Anybody who hasn't shared anything yet? Awesome. Yeah, Kendall and Chloe.
So I thought it would go faster if you sprayed something on my thing, but it went up. It didn't even move. But now that I wiped it off, every time it goes, when it lands down, it's torn.
Oh, what did you spray onto your surface?
It's Pam.
You did Pam. That's really cool, clever idea. I would have thought that it went faster, but maybe by adding that kind of spray, you know what? That spray sometimes is used in baking to help things not stick, but maybe in this case, it's helping it to stick. It's really interesting to see what things are creating more friction and less friction. That's not something I would have expected either. So I'm just like you. That was a really good idea to try it though. I love that you thought of like, what if I used a cooking spray? That was awesome. It's kind of like the wax that was used earlier. Fantastic, really cool.
Yeah, it was.
Well done. These are great, guys. You guys are doing so awesome. Does anybody else want to share anything before we do our reflection period? Well, feel free with what you guys have here and the things that you have at home. You can do this exercise so many times. As long as you have tin foil and tape, you can reuse the craft sticks as many times as you want and build a different kind of skier. I made my skier pretty tiny. You know, I made him pretty small. If I had more foil, maybe I can make a bigger one. What would that do? That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know what it would do, but I think it might. I think it might create like some weight issues, top heaviness, and maybe that would be my prediction. I think it wouldn't go as fast. Center of gravity for this guy is pretty low, so he can go pretty fast if he's on a surface that's pretty slick. But you guys can try out maybe doing the skis together. I have them apart, but maybe you can put them together and create a sleigh or a snowboarder. What would that do? So there's lots of different ways that you can do this little experiment and this little exercise. All right, you guys can still keep on working. What we're gonna do next is I'm gonna share my screen one last time. Here we go. Back to our scientific method, because we're gonna end our program about reflecting what we learned today. So this is the scientific method. Yes, we learned about movement and motion, force and friction, but we also learned about this concept. We observed just in our own lives what a skier looks like. We were able to build one. We asked a lot of questions, and then we made some predictions, what we thought was going to happen. And then we experimented. We actually tried it on our skier. And because of that, we were able to build some conclusions. We learned that, depending on the surface that you're using, like our felt, maybe our felt is stickier and creates more friction. And because of that, our skier wasn't able to go down the slope without a lot of intervention. Or some of you guys used an aid like wax or PAM. And you now have a conclusion. Did it go faster? Did your skier go slower? And so we created a result. We now have an idea of what might work and what might not work. And we could actually go back and redo this with different ideas and different questions because of the ones that we answered here. So that's basically the science of what we did today, which is really cool. So does anybody have any questions or things that they want to discuss or try? Since we have about 5 more minutes. Anybody? No? Hey, Kayla, you have your hand raised. What's up? It was Kayla and Dom.
Like when I put foil on my person, it started falling when it was still going down.
Oh, so did it go faster or did it go slower when you did that?
It mostly like tipped over and then just fell.
So adding that extra weight on top, that sometimes does happen. So it wasn't as successful as some of the other attempts. So maybe you'll tweak it next time and come up with something else, right? You've learned something from that, which is so important. And I'm looking at some of what you guys are doing. These are awesome. I'm looking at Alyssa and Emily's. That's awesome. You're playing around with the slope. And we didn't really do too much of that. We were just mostly talking about friction. But one of the things I did mention is slope. So I have a pretty steep slope here. So when I have my guy go, he goes pretty fast. If you were to play around with slope and have this be slower, like lower rather, like I'm gonna use my tape as the slope creator. I have a really low slope. So when I have him go, he's now just gonna sit there because even though it's still an elevation change from high to low, that slope allows for gravity to take control. So he might need a little bit of a push to get him going. So slope plays into it. Maybe play around with that. That's not something we were talking about earlier, but it's something you can do at your house. Kayla and Dom, you have your hand raised again.
We tried putting tape on the bottom of it, and it went much faster than the first.
Oh, what kind of tape did you use though?
We just used regular tape.
So that regular tape, and I don't have one here. It's pretty smooth, right?
Yeah, and even when I put tape on the bottom of my skier, it just when it was still going down.
Wow. So by adding that tape, whereas my tape, I'm going to show you guys, it has ridges. This duct tape is actually this. I don't know if it would do the same thing that your tape would do. So maybe the tape matters. These are things that we're learning about as we're going through. Really cool. I love that you put tape on the bottom. I didn't think to do that either. You guys are so clever. I'm going to try to elevate the slope just a little bit. I have a book that I'll use. So now I'm adding a book to the slope, and let's see what that does. He still doesn't move. So at what point will he move? Maybe I'll keep going up, up, up. Oh, there. So we needed a little bit more elevation to get him to move. So these are things that we can play around with. Awesome, guys. You guys are doing so good. What I am going to do is I'm going to stop the recording in just a moment. We can still stay on for another few minutes, but we are done for today, for the remainder of the year, but we only have a few more weeks. We are going to be back. I'll mention this now. We are going to be back, and you know what? While I'm doing this, I might as well go back to, hi everyone. I want to mention that we are going to be back in January with some more fun feats of science. Next month, we're going to be learning about balance. In February, we're going to be learning about the moon with Oreos, because why not? And then constellations, I believe in March. We were going to do slime, but I think we're going to hold off on that one. And then we're going to do learn about muscles. Not the animal, our muscles, our human body. So we are going to be coming back in the winter/spring for a few more of these sessions. So stay tuned. The next session will be in January, and we'll be learning about balance. So we'll be doing some fun activities for that. Okay? So we hope that you guys will tune in for that one. And now I am going to stop the recording. I have to go to my other computer to do that. So one sec, guys.
Recording stuff.